Really?
So we're trying to figure out how, Sean and I were talking, we're trying to figure out how we can get it to RI, have RI use it for
Right.
Corona Peace.
I just told Deb that we had asked her to call a friend of ours who was reluctant to get the vaccine. And after Deb talked to her, she actually went and did it.
Good. That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Really is.
I'm trying to find the picture that they used. Yeah, it was funny because it was just like the whole night was my face with my Rotary mask on television.
Hey, Deb Granada.
So you saw the clip.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she called me up afterwards and she was like, oh, I'm really sorry.
That's the only thing I haven't had to worry about my whole life for the most part, unless kids were making fun of me when I was little. My name's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I know, like you would think, like, how difficult is Granda?
Yeah.
So my problem was always when I would interact with someone of Asian descent and they would try and say my last name, of which the letter L just doesn't exist in their phonetic repertoire. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the picture. Sean and I were trying to figure out how Rotary could use that, Jim. Because everything in there is with my Rotary mask.
Yeah, it's you definitely were promoting Rotary.
Yeah, here's the
Oh,
picture.
look at that. Doesn't that look nice?
That's the one. It must have been on the TV 100 times last night.
Wow. What advertisement that was, huh?
I know.
Wow.
That's why Sean was like, we got to do something with this.
Oh, that's awesome.
so I
The new
kind
club must have
of
liked that.
I got a chat message from whoever is running the meeting in Lowry's, and they asked if we would be quiet for just a moment
Oh, sure.
so they could do
Okay.
an audio test. So if you guys can hear us, start talking. And yeah, I don't know. All right, nothing happening. So I guess let's resume normal behavior here.
Hi, all.
Hey, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, Tom, are you in Arizona?
Yeah, down here for a little while.
Oh,
Good.
nice.
The first time you came on time, you had such a bright background, couldn't see you. So
Yeah, I just turned it around.
yeah, that works. That works.
So Deb, I was saying your new Rotary Club must have loved all that coverage right away.
I don't know that they even know about it. I was just trying to figure out how to reach the president. I was telling Stu, I had a conversation with a guy in the club who's from New Jersey. And I said, we're Jersey kids, so you got to tell me like it is. And he said, only if it's confidential. So he told me a lot about what's going on at the club. And he said, just keep in mind that you are not in New Jersey and you are definitely not in Las Vegas. And so he said, figure out the lay of the land, put your head down and figure things out.
Don't rock the boat, right?
Don't rock the boat, but they don't do a Pledge of Allegiance at the meeting. And
I would say you better get used to one word.
What?
Y'all.
Y'all, I know, y'all. So, so the first several times I went to the meeting, the president was running the meeting on Zoom. So I just met him this past Monday for the first time. And he asked me if I had any ideas or any pointers. And I was like, okay, well, he opened the door. So I said, I've been in Rotary 26 years. I said, I have never been to a Rotary meeting in the United States where they didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh.
And he said, really? And I said, never. And so he said, okay. He goes, well, we used to do a song instead, but we don't want to do that because of COVID and people, singing. And I said, that's fine. I get that. I said, but the Pledge of Allegiance is kind of critical.
That's right. You're right.
So he said that he would look into,
Well,
look
hey,
into that.
It could have been worse, I guess. You could have walked in, they could have had a Confederate flag to be saluting.
I know. That would not have been good.
No,
I
no.
pledge allegiance to the South.
I gotta turn this light on. It's too dark.
You know what's curious? I remember as a young child, even in the elementary schools, they did the pledge at the start of every class. And yet I've been in a bunch of different classrooms here in Las Vegas, and I guess it must be different for the presidents, for the principals, but some of them do. They start out each morning with the pledge over the PA system, and some of them just don't do it at all. And apparently it's not uniform policy within Clark County to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's too bad.
Yeah,
It should
that really is too bad.
Yeah, it should be in every school at the beginning of the school day. It should be.
Yeah, a couple of the elementary schools where they don't have, like, you know, an assembly, they'll just start off in the morning. The intercom will have like a bong or something on it and say, "Good morning, students, welcome," and then they'd have one of the students, they'd say, "This is Tammy Hart from grade 3," and she would read the pledge. Yeah. Well, I see stuff happening.
I just think it's important. I just think it's.
Of course it is, Deb. You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
I mean, the song is nice and the invocation is nice, but the Pledge of Allegiance is kind of primary. And then at the end of the meeting, they do the 4-way test, which is nice. So.
Yeah.
But so I said, "Oh, do I just give you my credit card and you bill my dues every month?" And they're like, no, we
Why did you
haven't gotten that set up yet.
say- This is ours, yeah.
Oh, I see.
These are.
So
ours.
I got my bill, gonna mail a check. And I'm like, I'm mailing a check for the year because I can't, if I have to do this every month, I'll be late.
I heard a funny little vignette when somewhere on the radio they were talking about the colleges still require that you mail in your college application, and they were talking to this one father who was trying to get his daughter admitted to one of these colleges, and he told her, put it in an envelope and stick a stamp on it, and she said, what is that?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, it's true, we haven't used snail mail.
Abby and Ammo.
Uh-oh, that
It
sounds
must
like
be Samuel.
I don't see anybody.
No, and
Yeah,
they're
he
on
must not-
mute now.
he
There we
is.
go.
Abby.
Hi, Samuel.
Hi, baby.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
doing?
What you doing?
Yeah, are you on Zoom?
Yeah, say Philip Lisa. What are you reading?
Yeah, what are you reading?
Dr. Seuss.
Ammo and
Elmo.
Cookie Monster.
Cookie Monster.
Who's your favorite?
What do you like? Which one do you like?
I like a purple one.
Which one is the purple one? No, it's happy.
Samuel, look what I have.
Oh, there's Elmo.
Look what I have.
Ammo.
Elmo. Isn't he cool? He's my buddy. He's my baby.
Yay!
I
Elmo.
bet you weren't expecting to see Elmo today.
That's that.
This look at Elmo. Yeah. Yay! 2 Elmos.
2 ammos.
Elmo.
Oh,
Should we get Elmo to join Rotary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll make Elmo, we're gonna make Elmo sit right here today and join Rotary today.
Wow.
Where's my Elmo?
Samuel just had a birthday, so now he's 3.
Wow. Sam,
Happy birthday, should we sing?
hey, honey.
Yeah.
David.
What's Samuel?
The room.
Déjame ver.
The room.
What did you get from Mama Karen?
Birthday.
You had a birthday?
Fire truck.
Fire truck pajamas. And
Into room.
Samuel, how old are you?
vacuum.
You
A
read it.
vacuum.
How old are you?
Hi, Samuel.
How old are you? This is Jim.
Them.
Hey, buddy.
Jim Eccles.
All right.
Jim Eccles.
Them.
Yeah.
What's them?
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Mhm.
Doing
That is
good.
Jim.
You're getting big.
That's them. That's them.
That is Jim.
Yes,
Yay.
you
That's him.
Hey, that's Jim.
You're getting big, Samuel.
I get in my chocolate.
Okay.
My chocolate.
No chocolates. It's
You like
sleep time.
chocolate?
Sleep time. Sleep time.
Purple chocolate.
Okay. Okay.
Samuel, what's gonna happen this weekend?
I have a good day.
Yes, you had a good day.
You had a good day? Is the
Alright.
Easter bunny coming on Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay, so Easter. What did the
Pizza
people say?
party.
What did the people say?
It's a police.
They trampled the leaf, and what was it?
And one donkey.
Yes. And what was it?
Sunday.
Oh, they wait today.
What did the people say?
Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna.
Hosanna. Yes. What the people say?
Supper and leave.
Yeah. Okay, so say bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye,
gonna go
bye,
sleepy.
bye.
Bye,
Go
sweet.
sleepy.
Bye, honey. Happy Easter, honey. Happy Easter.
Kisses.
And go, I was sleepy.
Yeah. Sam was sleeping. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Elmo's gonna go take a nap too. Say bye, Elmo.
Bye.
I'm gonna go take a nap.
No, Elmo.
Bye, Samuel.
Okay. All right, they're gonna go now. They're gonna start now, I think.
Bet you guys weren't expecting me to have Elmo, huh?
No, that was cute.
That was cool.
Hi, Ginger.
Hi,
Hi,
Ginger.
Ginger.
Hi. How is everybody?
Okay.
Good.
Nice shades, Tom.
Thank you. A little bright out here.
Yeah.
Are you in Florida?
Down here in Arizona.
Oh. I'm in Arizona too.
Wow.
Wow, what's the attraction down there? It's not hot enough for you here in Las Vegas?
Nice weather.
Yeah.
I like it hot, so it's good for me.
I'm gonna go sleep.
They're on spring break. That's why they're there.
Okay. Boy, it's hard to tell on the weekends that there was a pandemic going on here in Las Vegas. The traffic on the weekends is and pedestrian traffic on the strip is about equal to the heaviest I've ever seen it ever.
Wow.
Morning commute's getting slower and slower too. Not quite what it was beginning of 2020, but it's getting there.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I guess it's all due to the basketball, but
Spring breakers.
and spring breakers. Yeah.
Ginger, do you ever check out, there's an event that's going to be down there, I think, what, next, in a couple of weeks, that where they have these offshore power boats that go You ever check that out?
Yeah, we have.
A friend of mine
It's
wanted me to go down there with him for the weekend, and I said, I'm not quite ready for that yet, but maybe I might ride down there for a day or something.
Was that, depending on when it is, you might be able to stay here
Oh, thank you. That's nice
if
of
you
you.
want the
I
house. I'll
think
check
it's
it out.
The 23rd, I think, is the weekend of the event.
Okay.
But yeah, it looked like a fun event. I mean, they had these cool long power boats, and where do they go? They go from Pirates Cove all the way down, or something like that, or
Oh, wow. So they go all the way down the river.
They're getting
then.
ready.
It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Meeting started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mute.
You,
Mute. Okay.
we don't have their audio though.
Hello, Lowry's. Could you turn the audio on for us? I sent them a chat message. I hope they can hear us. We can't hear anything from Lowry's. Guys, turn the audio on. I'll send a text message to somebody's phone over there. Maybe they can get the attention of someone.
Hey, Stu, Tony Kern just texted me and asked if we could hear. I said no.
Just sending a chat message to her. Okay.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Hey, all right. Thank you. And Susan, while you're there, could you cue up a patriotic song to get us started today? I believe one of our members donated this patriotic song. You have it there, but
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
thank you, Susan. And now if you join me in the pledge. Thank you. Please be seated. And thank you to all of the 25 club members who helped in the setup of today's meeting, to Jared and Susan, to Bobbin, Krista, Sarah, and to Tina, Kate, and Bert. So thank you all. Also, thank you to Lisa Motley for acting as the scribe for today's meeting. And to Jim Tucker for being our paparazzi today. Thank you all. Do we have any guests or visiting Rotarians today? And Sarah, if you would take the microphone to the person right behind you, our visiting Rotarian.
Hi, I snuck in. I'm Tom Novotny from the Las Vegas West Club. It's been a while since I got out of the house, so I'm glad to be here. Glad to share this meeting with you. And I wanted to announce that we have our fundraiser going on for the first time in 3 years. So if you're interested, we got scratch cards. Give me a call. I won't harass you too bad today. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Guest right up here.
Yep. Hi, Rotarians. I am pleased to introduce to you my guest, Nancy Anderson. Nancy is a friend of mine. She's a realtor in town, and she also teaches in all the real estate fields of continuing ed and newbies.
Thank you and welcome, Nancy. Any other guests or visiting Rotarians? All right. All right, can we have a big round of applause for our guests and our visiting Rotarians? For our announcements today, the first announcement is we have a birthday table since it's the first of the month. So Sarah, if you would take the microphone over to the birthday table and allow the birthday celebrants to introduce themselves.
So my name is Stephen Kwan. I'm going to this club 24 years. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
My name is Eric Astromecki. Been in this club 5 years now. 2015 is when I joined. I turned 30. So, yeah, I know.
Oh, poor thing.
That's it. Everyone else just sat here because they wanted to be cool.
And we do. Okay. Let's see, to make it a nice even number, President-elect Mike and Brian and Paul and Kim, how about if we just fine each of you $250 to make it a nice round 1,000 for the Rotary Foundation? Thank you for your contribution. Oh. Well, okay, we'll reduce it to $200 to each of you so that we can get to the even 1,000.
Hi, it's actually April 24th, but I'm sliding under the radar because, I don't want to add another year to my life. I'd rather minus it. So thank you. I've been a Rotary-
Lame, very lame. That'll be $200.
Thank you.
And I think up on the screen, we have some birthday celebrations.
Yep.
Marie, is it your birthday this month?
It is. I will be 81 years old on April the 9th. And I thank God for these wonderful years that I've had. I've been in Rotary I'm in my 9th year, and I work with the children, and I love every minute of it. And thank you.
Thank you, Marie. And did I see Judith Pinkerton? Were you up there, Judith?
Hello, yes. I am so excited to say I'm almost 2 years now as a Rotarian with this fabulous club. I just had some interesting news shared with me that I'm actually a 3rd generation Rotarian because my grandfather convinced his Rotary Club in Durango, Colorado to build the airstrip. So it was pretty interesting trivia for me. Very glad to be here.
And I think, have we missed anybody? Is there any other Rotarian up on the screen that we're not seeing? No? Well, in that case, would you please join me in singing happy birthday to all of our Rotarians? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Thank you. And because we're having some trouble getting people to volunteer to be the scribe at these meetings, we're going to start something new today. Lisa, would you come up? Yep. Lisa, we're going to give you this check for $1,914 for volunteering to act as a scribe today. And incidentally, Lisa did win the raffle last week. You're welcome. And Tony, do we have a new member to induct today? All right, let's do it.
Hi, everyone. Happy April Fools. Today, we have the pleasure of inducting another new member, not a joke. And her name is Michelle Cowbry. Her sponsor is Tina Bishop. So I would like to invite Tina up to say a few nice words about her, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Rosalie. I met Michelle on one of her first visits to the club and liked her instantly. We exchanged a little bit about ourselves and bonded over two of my favorite things, jewelry and wine. She's a woman that does not shy away from challenges. In 2011, she bought 5 acres in Northern California that included a house that would make the before version of a fixer-upper look like a mansion. She took on the challenge, hammer in hand, and made it shine. In 2013, she began planting grapes now and then. Her goal initially was to flip the property, but along the way, she got competitive and set a lofty goal to build an award-winning winery. Thus were the humble beginnings of what would become Black Vet Winery. The winery's first fermentation was bottled in late 2018 and earned both a silver and bronze medal for artistic label. The San Francisco Chronicle awarded 3 of her wines silver and bronze medals. She comes to us from a family of those that serve and believe in service above self. Her grandfather received the Distinguished Service Medal from his service in France while in the Army, and her father was a Marine. She belonged to the Auburn Rotary Club for 3 years, as well as serving as a board member of the Salvation Army. There's so much more to know about Michelle. I hope you will introduce yourselves to her and discover more about this lady's journey to Las Vegas, from Connecticut to Portland to Arizona to California, and many other journeys she has had in her vintage 1966 black Corvette.
Okay, now we'll have Michelle step up and just say a few words about herself that Tina didn't cover. And just welcome, come on up.
Thank you so much. I was impressed during the first 2 lunches I was here. Having been a Rotarian in Auburn, I immediately knew as soon as I got semi-settled to find an appropriate Rotary organization to join. And I just love the philosophy of children and making sure the children are literate. And I do believe that that is a differentiator in their life. So I'm so pleased to be here. I plan on being on committees, and there's lots of Corvette events coming up. One this Saturday that I'll be at the museum, Shelby Museum. So if y'all want to see my car, I'll be there. And I do have some wine left over from my commercial winery. And so I'm sure on occasion I'll have to pour a little bit for everybody. So I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you so much. I'm honored. Thank you.
Okay, so come over this way a little bit. Now we're going to do our official induction. So a little bit of a ceremony. Oh, yeah. See who it is? Okay, I'm cool. Okay. On this April Fool's Day, on behalf of the Las Vegas Rotary Club, it is my privilege to induct a new member today, Michelle Calvi, a transferring Rotarian from the Rotary Club of Auburn in Northern California, where she was a member from January 2019 until her relocation to Las Vegas. Michelle, you have been invited to become a member of the Las Vegas Rotary Club and become a Rotarian because you exhibit the qualities that make you a leader in our community and because you have shown qualities of head and heart that are the foundation of Rotary clubs around the world. Holding different advisory committee and board chairman positions for nonprofit and for-profit organizations. Each Rotarian is expected to be the example of the ideal of Rotary, service above self. To be the example of the, whoops, went back to the wrong line again. And we appreciate you will continue being an example of that idea. Rotary will be judged by your actions, and you therefore take on a great responsibility in becoming a Rotarian and a member of our club. You are also taking on the obligation of attending weekly meetings here at the Las Vegas Rotary Club, wherever you travel. For this, you will be rewarded many-fold in friendship and camaraderie. We expect much from you in help, service, and dedication as a Rotarian. As you well know, expect to get much from Rotary through service to others, through our club service, vocational service, community, and international service. We welcome your strong heart for service in joining the club to engage in Rotary International's current theme, Rotary Opens Opportunities. You are given a Rotary pin by your sponsor as a symbol of your acceptance into our family of Rotary. Wear it proudly. With that, on behalf of our new club, it is my pleasure and honor to extend a congratulations to Michelle on becoming the newest member of the Las Vegas Rotary Club, the greatest club in the world. Thank you. Yay. Did you want to join us, Richard, for a picture? And Tony, do you want to join us for a picture?
I would be honored.
Yeah. I'll flank him on this side.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you get us all? I'll jump over here. There we go. Yeah. Can we all stand and welcome Michelle?
There you go.
Thanks all. Thank you, Richard.
And while we're talking about Corvettes, Sean asked me to point out to you that while the Rotary going out of business today was an April Fool's joke, the part in that message about Sean being willing to accept a shiny red Corvette from anyone who wants to give it to her was not a joke. She'd be happy to receive it. Marie, if you're still with us, can you tell us anything about Breakfast with Books? But you'll need to unmute first.
Okay, there I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, as we all know from the news, the children are going back to school on the 6th, and it will be 5 days a week. And I'd like to give you some information about books that have been handed out in the last couple of weeks. First of all, they had kindergartners go back to school, and the ones that were there, they gave out 45 kindergarten bags, which consisted of and included first through third grade, 350 books. So 350 books have been distributed in the last couple of weeks, which is really awesome. And I'm very, very proud and very pleased of that. So I will keep you updated. Let's hope the kids going back to school have a good time, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. And Tina, do you want to tell us about a upcoming gambling opportunity?
So this is Save the Date. It's another virtual event. April 21st is the date. It's a Wednesday. And we're going to do virtual bingo. It's going to be hosted by a professional game show host. It's about an hour, and we'll add some time on before and some time on after for socializing. To do this event, you really need two devices. You need a computer, obviously, and then your bingo cards, and there'll be 4 to 5 games, will be on your iPad or your smartphone or something. So if you gather people in your home and you want to have, if you've got, 6 or 7 people, whether it be family or friends that want to do that, each would need their own smartphone, because that's where the bingo card is. And more to come. So it's April 21st, Wednesday night, 5:30.
Thank you, Tina. And if you would take the microphone to Rose, where's Rose Faloco?
Oh, that's right. April Fools, I'm not Rose. Is it on? It's not even on. Oh, it is on. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, sorry. So just a reminder, tonight is 25 Club Mixer at Jerry Engel's home. If you've not RSVP'd, please let me know. I need you to email me so we can put you on the list. If you can't attend, but you would like to buy raffle tickets for all the items, there was only 4 in the email, but there's more that are going to be there tonight. You can also email me and let me know how many tickets you want, and we will either bill your account. I'll tell Sean to bill your account. And if you're coming, please bring something to eat and something to drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. And continuing on the gaming theme for today's raffle, the winning ticket for a chance to pull the joker and win half the pot would be 2348849. Two, 8849. All right. I can give you 10 now, and Sean will give you the other 40. And the winning ticket for the Lowry's Bucks is 2348816. All right, Jim. I trust you. You're a Rotarian. And last but not least, Jim Hunt, if you're still up there. I know you're not watching the Red Sox game because I heard they were rained out today on opening day. Would you like to tell us about the Wheelchair Foundation?
Well, it is opening day, but yeah, I didn't even know about the postponement. Thanks for giving me that update, President. Yeah, our Wheelchair Foundation is still going strong. I guess the wheelchair delivery of the week this week, I think I want to tip a nod to Brock Fraser. He did one yesterday that was on his Facebook. For those of you who that might be joining any of us that are delivering the wheelchairs on our Facebook, you'll see once in a while, we'll throw up some pictures up there and we'll probably have it in next week's wheel. But he delivered one to a woman who had on her table probably 40 prescriptions with the wheelchair she had. I mean, some of these folks that we're delivering to are really heartwarming and heartbreaking. And Brock had a wonderful woman that he delivered to yesterday. And we're doing that every week. So please continue to get the word out. The more wheelchairs that we can get through our own sources is even that much better. But John Williams is doing his best to promote it. His new truck has got all the advertising on it. And we look to be making a lot more deliveries in the near future. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Jim. And if somebody wanted to become a wheelchair delivering person, but they're not a Boston Red Sox fan, would you accept them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we can convert them. So.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that concludes our announcements and leaves you roughly 10 minutes to gossip and fellowship.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi.
Are you in Arizona too?
I am.
That's good.
I'm probably echoing on Dad's computer. I don't know if I'm quite far away from him.
Did you somehow get a pass from the girls to take a break or no? I doubt that, right? They're down there with you.
Not really. No, the girls are here, but they're, the teenagers are still sleeping. So I guess that's my break. And then Tegan and I just finished shopping because she goes back to school. So we finally did our back to school shopping.
Very good.
For what? For what? A whole 2 weeks or what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll see how long it lasts. But
Aren't they going to go through the summer, or have they made a decision that they're going to take the usual summer break?
I mean, right as of now, they're still ending in the end of May or something like that. I don't know if they're going to extend school or not. I guess it depends on where everybody's grades are, or how they are when they get back on campus. But they're supposed to still have a summer break.
Wow. I think they'd want to make up time, but
Yep, but I don't really know. The high schooler didn't go back to campus. She's gonna wait until the fall. So.
It seems kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm anxious for the kids to get back to school too, but for just a couple of weeks, I don't get it. Am I missing something?
I don't know. I mean, get caught up a little bit before summer break, but yeah, that's kind of why. Well, and McKenna's school was only supposed to be hybrid, so that's why she's not going back, because 2 days a week for a couple of weeks, and you're just like, what is this gonna do?
Right.
It's kind of like a dress rehearsal for the fall, I think.
Right.
so
Her
I
grades
guess
aren't that bad actually, so she's okay.
The news was that they've actually tested the children from, I think, 12 on up, and found that the vaccine is safe and effective with them. So they now can vaccinate the at least through the junior high school.
Yeah. That would work for McKenna, but not Tegan's only 10. But yeah, McKenna has weekly check-ins with her counselor, and she's actually doing better than most of the kids. So I guess we'll let her keep going virtual for a while.
I think
How are you doing,
there's a,
Karen?
Doing good. I got my first shot, so I'm looking forward to my second one.
Any side effects from the first one?
Nope. My arm was hardly even sore, so
Oh,
that was good.
that's good. Did you do Moderna or Pfizer?
Pfizer.
Yeah,
And
that's-
my shingles shot hurt more than the vaccine did. So
Yeah.
it was good.
That is good.
Knowing that she has committed a huge crime. We can bring also answer the question.
Oh, Marie left us.
Realize that having a death date is not natural.
Melanie, you have a lot of background noise. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Oh, I think there's a TV in here. I'll mute myself.
Anything good on? I don't even want to watch the news anymore. So
That's
depressing.
all my mom watches. It's news all day long and she just leaves it running. I don't understand.
Yeah, the stuff at the border is so depressing.
Melanie, you look like a movie star with your background.
Well, I think we're going to, we're planning on going to our first restaurant in a year and 3 months tonight. So I don't know. I got my fingers crossed.
You'll be fine. Which one you going to?
The Americana, it's on Lake Jacqueline up in, I guess that's Summerlin. I'm not sure what the area is, somewhere in the western suburbs. They have a harvest special where unlimited white and red wines and appetizer, entree, dessert. We've been there a couple of years ago, but it's just a beautiful view out on their patio looking over the lake.
In Desert Shores, right?
Yeah, Desert
Yeah,
Shores,
Desert
that's
Shores.
right. Yeah, I couldn't think of it. I love the fact you go up there and all the street names, are like West Coast or Florida. So you have Marina Drive and Admiralty Way and whatever, Regatta Drive. It's just on a little man-made lake. There's a nice wine store there too, Marche Bacchus, that has a little patio restaurant. It just kind of growing up on the East Coast and being around water. It's kind of like an escape back to roots, to look out and see something that looks like a lake. We actually went there for the very first time when we had first moved to Las Vegas, and my wife was looking for a tailor, and we were just driving around in the little Korean tailor shop there, and she took her slacks in, and we had lunch at Marche Bacchus, and by the time we came out, they had done what would normally be, take 2 or 3 days if we had taken it somewhere other than a Korean tailor shop. The speaker today is something to do with COVID. I just saw a slide that they were up, they were previewing it, but I didn't look at the wheel. Anyone know who the speaker is?
I think it's Carla Perez. Valley Health System.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost anticlimactic now. We had an HOA meeting last night and people were complaining that we had like a temporary table set up as a barrier between the front desk. They're saying, why don't we put plexiglass in like they do in, and we're saying like in a couple weeks, we'll probably could be unable to remove the table, leave it alone.
Ginger, do you have your vaccines yet?
One down, one to go.
Yeah, me too. One down. Did you get the Pfizer?
I got Moderna.
I think you just kind of get what you get when you check in.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say no.
Yeah, exactly. We've been waiting too long.
Yeah, yeah. So happy to be on the way.
When we went to the Encore, they didn't give us a choice, but I could see that some days they were doing Moderna, some days they were doing Pfizer, because you could see the signs they had up, but you know, we didn't care.
Which one did you get to?
We got the Pfizer. I guess the only difference was they're recommending 3 weeks between the Pfizer and 4 weeks between the Moderna, but they're supposed to have the same degree of effectiveness, same technology.
My brother-in-law was there yesterday getting his wife vaccinated, and they said that Thursday and Fridays they're doing Johnson and Johnson.
Oh, that'd be nice. One and done.
Yeah, like you said, I'm just happy to get what I got.
Yeah, I think we have 3 of them approved here in the US, but there apparently is a huge quantity of the AstraZeneca vaccine that's been approved just about everywhere else in the world except the US. And the US bought, I think, 15 million shots, but they're not distributing. So they started sending them to Canada and to Europe. If they would allow it to be used here, we'd have more supply than we have demand, kind of accelerate stuff, but the FDA is holding it up for some reason.
When I had my shot done last week, there was only maybe 15 people there. So it's like they had plenty of appointment
Resume
times.
in your wheel. Tom Thomas asked me to do this today because he was out of town. And when he sent me her bio, he said, Carla has been my single most important source of how COVID has affected our community. So I'm going to let that be her introduction. Please help me welcome Carla Perez.
Thank you so much. And if it's okay, I'm going to speak without a mask because it is very difficult when you speak for a while because it keeps getting sucked down into your throat. So, so that you can hear me, I'm going to go without if that's okay. I am vaccinated, so those of you in the front are safe. All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's certainly my pleasure, and it's a bit cathartic actually to be able to talk about this because we've had such an incredibly difficult year in the hospitals. And so to be able to talk to a group of people who can empathize and sympathize with us is truly, truly appreciated. So I want to just share some of our lessons during the pandemic. And is there a remote for the a clicker? It was there earlier. I could describe every slide for you, but that could take us a while. There we go. It's working. Very good. Thank you so much. Let me just tell you a little bit about the company that I work for is Universal Health Services as our parent company. They're actually based in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, but we've got hospitals all over the United States and including the UK as well. We've got a few of our behavioral health facilities. We're in 38 different states. We've got both acute behavioral health and ambulatory services. We have over 90,000 employees, primarily clinical caregivers. We own a health plan as well. And we employ several hundred physicians across the United States as well. And we are ranked by Fortune as one of the world's most admired companies. Here in Nevada, bring it a little bit closer to home, we actually have the largest footprint of any of our states here in Nevada. And we have, as you can see, diverse geography that goes across the entire state last year with COVID. And I found this quote very early on as we started, and it really, frankly, just completely summed up exactly what we were going through. And it's a quote by Don Rumsfeld, and it says, "There are known knowns. These are things that we know. There are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we know we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns. These are things we don't know. And that really sums up COVID, particularly when we started. We didn't know what we didn't know. Just as an example, when patients first started to present, we were told to look for flu-type symptoms, cough, fever, and so that's what we looked for. What we started to see fairly early on, though, was that patients were presenting with very atypical symptoms. We had patients who were presenting with headaches. We had patients with diarrhea and other GI symptoms. Then we started to see the loss of taste and the loss of smell. Very atypical symptoms to what we originally told we were looking for in a patient that had COVID. In addition, we didn't know how we were going to treat COVID. We didn't know how the disease was going to be able to respond to protocols. We didn't know what types of medications were going to be most effective. You all heard the controversy about hydrochloroquine and whether or not we should be using that. And so that was a challenge as well. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen and how long this was going to last, whether this was going to be a 2 or 3 month that we needed to prepare, or if we were preparing for something that was going to last years. And hence that became the challenge for our hospitals. And I want to just talk about a few of those challenges. The first being PPE, or personal protective equipment. You all probably heard about the shortages that occurred across the nation, and much of that had to do with the fact that historically PPE in a hospital was only done in the ORs. The surgeons and the staff would wear gowns and masks and gloves to protect the patient. They didn't do it for their own protection, it was for the protection of the patient. So all of a sudden now, we have to provide PPE on a massive scale to numerous clinicians. And frankly, they just didn't make enough of it to be able to get it. So as you can probably imagine from an economic perspective, the first thing that happened, supply and demand, the prices shot through the roof. Masks that we were able to buy for pennies before became dollars, and then $10. And then we were actually paying at one point $12 for a simple surgical mask. At one point, we were being completely gouged, but we had to buy it. We had to buy what we could get. And unfortunately, what we were also happening is there were a lot of scammers. There were companies that demanded to be paid up front. And so we would send hundreds of thousands of dollars to this company expecting to get product only to find out that it was a scam. And then we would get product and we would open up boxes and we would find that the elastic bands were completely dried up and they snapped and were broken. We had boxes that had mold inside of it when we opened up the box. I think this was an opportunity for vendors to just clean out their warehouses and get rid of things, take off the old expiration date and put a sticker on it and sell it for massive prices. But over time, more manufacturers stepped up and started to make masks where they were not, being able to produce whatever it was they were producing previously. So they were making masks and they were making gowns. Gowns was another big challenge for us. At one point, there was not a single gown that you could acquire anywhere in the United States. Our staff were actually wearing garbage bags. We cut holes in, put it on their head, and we would cut the arbs, we would attach them with rubber bands so they could be protected while they were caring for patients. We had to sterilize and reuse masks. We've got a lot of sterilizing equipment in the hospital, and most of our staff would use N95 masks, and we would actually have to put them through the sterilizers. They'd each get their own little pouch with their name on. We'd sterilize them and they'd get it back and they'd have to rewear it. So the first several months, as you can imagine, was incredibly traumatic for much of our staff. And we also had to limit the PPE. We couldn't give it to everybody because we just didn't have enough of it. So we had to limit it to the clinical staff who were in the emergency room, who were on the COVID unit itself, and anybody, the housekeepers, or et cetera, who rounded in those areas. Over time, we were able to expand that and obviously offer PPE to all of our staff. And we had an outpouring from the community of people who wanted to make masks for our non-clinical staff. And certainly by that time, then we were able to provide masks and PPE for all of our staff. The next thing I wanted to mention was just the negative pressure rooms or zero pressure rooms. Zero pressure rooms are a type of room that prevents the transmission of infection into the airstream so the entire hospital doesn't get infected because we have an infectious patient. Well, every hospital just has a limited number of them. So we had to very quickly convert a lot of rooms to negative pressure. We also had to convert a lot of rooms to ICU. Initially, most of our patients ended up in an ICU. Primarily because we didn't really know how to treat them yet at that point. And so many of them were getting sick very fast. And so we needed more ICU space. We're fortunate that most of our hospitals have what we call universal rooms. So we can put an ICU patient in a med-surg room. The problem though became staffing. We needed more critical care nurses to be able to care for patients. It wasn't just about the geography as well. And then ventilators. You all heard the controversy about ventilators, and now we're running out of ventilators across the nation, particularly in New York. We heard a lot about ventilators. The challenge with ventilators is that initially, very early on, the protocol that we were told was to put patients on ventilators to help them breathe. What we learned fairly quickly was that was the worst thing that we could do. Ventilators actually exacerbated the disease, and now ventilators are the treatment of last resort. We don't put anyone on a ventilator unless there is literally nothing else we can do for that patient. So as we learned that, the ventilator supply became more ample because now we didn't need them and we didn't anticipate that we were going to need them for every single patient that had COVID across the hospital. But all of our hospitals are now very stocked with ventilators because we bought every one we could. And so if there ever is a pandemic that needs ventilators, I think we're all going to be good. The other thing that I didn't put up here was just kind of the overall cost. I mentioned the cost of PPE, the buying of ventilators, the converting of rooms. Medications itself, incredibly expensive. After we got past the hydrochloroquine phase, we went into a drug which has been kind of the drug of choice, which is called remdesivir. Remdesivir is incredibly expensive. Every patient has to get 5 doses of it. I can tell you in November, December, and most of January, we were spending up to $1 million a week on remdesivir to treat our patients. It also extended the length of stay for patients as well because of the 5-course. Patients had to stay in the hospital to get the 5 courses of remdesivir. So a lot of expense there. Probably the most challenging, however, though, was staffing. Staffing from many aspects. First of all, being able to, I mentioned the critical care nurses, being able to get enough nurses in our facilities because while the community was getting COVID, so was our own staff getting COVID as well. And so people were out sick. Also, we had areas on the East Coast in particular that were hardest hit before we were. And many of our nurses were offered incredible salaries to go to New York to supplement their staffing. And so they were going and, getting paid $5,000 bonuses per day to take care. And so many of them, quit and got on a plane and flew to New York. And, many of them fortunately are now coming back to take care of our patients in our community. So let me talk a little bit more about staffing and really the toll that it took on healthcare workers. If you can possibly imagine the fatigue and the burnout, the fact that we were short-staffed, that we had our own staff out sick. Some staff chose not to work, but for the many, many, many brave staff who did choose to work and come in every single day, we had to rely on them to actually work extra. So most of the nurses who work 12-hour shifts and typically would work a 3 days, 12 hours, were working 5 and 6 days, 12 hours at a time. And of course, we paid a significant amount for overtime and also paid bonuses to those staff who were willing to step up and do that as well. But you can only do that so long, and fatigue and burnout do start to set in. The other issue was the lack of visitation. We had to cancel visitation in all of our facilities because we didn't want to expose our patients to visitors coming in or expose visitors to disease within the facility. And so many of these caregivers had to be the substitute family member. They had to be the ones holding the hand of the patient as they died. They had to be the ones who informed the family that their loved one wasn't going to make it. And that's incredibly tough to do, to have to say goodbye to a family member on an iPhone or a Skype, and the nurses had to take on that responsibility. The other was that they were risking infection themselves. While we provided them PPE, it isn't always 100%. And I can tell you that many of our staff members who got COVID actually didn't get it at the hospital. In retrospect, even though they were basically running into the fire, right? Taking care of known COVID patients. But we were fortunate in that we were able to provide them with the necessary PPE. Most staff who got COVID actually will, by their own admission, will tell you they got it out in the community, from their own family members, from others that they socialized with. The other was just the fear of the unknown. We had no idea how long this was going to last. And, somebody could work overtime, work, 6 shifts for a certain period of time. We didn't know it was going to go on for an entire year. And that was a challenge. And, fortunately, I'm going to show you some statistics here in just a moment. We're hopefully coming down and we were not going to repeat what we had previously. And of course, they had to tend to their own families. Most of our staff have their own families that they wanted to go home to. Many of them couldn't go home because they were working in a COVID unit. And so many of our staff stayed in hotels, they rented apartments together and they stayed together so that they weren't exposing their own family members. So let me just share some statistics with you. We know across the United States, there have been 30 million cases of COVID reported. And I stress reported because some will tell you that that number is probably closer to 100 million. And the reason for that is many patients just didn't get tested. They knew they were exposed. They had the symptoms. They weren't really sick, but they just quarantined like they were supposed to and never even bothered to get tested. There was also a very long period of time where you couldn't get tested. Testing supplies were so limited that we had to reserve them for just those patients who were being admitted to a hospital. So there was an extended period of time where we believe there was a lot of COVID that probably would have been diagnosed that we just couldn't test. In Nevada, there's been 304,000 cases and 5,200 deaths. Here in Clark County, there's been 234,000 cases with 4,000 deaths. So the majority of the deaths in Nevada have been here in Southern Nevada. The other statistic that we follow very closely is hospitalizations. And since last March, we've treated this is just my hospitals here in Las Vegas. We've treated over 16,512 patients to be exact as of yesterday. But thousands of others are what we call PUIs, or patients under investigation. These are patients who come in with COVID symptoms. We test them. We have to treat them as though they are COVID positive, even though while we're waiting for that result to come back. And there was a period of time where results were taking 5 and 6 days because the labs couldn't keep up with the amount of testing that was being done. So we have probably treated over 25,000 patients, I would say, in total. So just to kind of follow this particular flow here, you see when COVID first started, we in the hospital industry kind of thought they're making too big of a deal of this. We have more flu in our hospital than we do COVID. And, a lot of people kind of bought into that, right? From a national perspective, that this really was just more hype than really what it was. But I can tell you it was real. Initially, our first spike occurred shortly after, it was in April. We actually saw a fairly steep decline right away. And we thought, okay, well, this is nothing. We've been through worse than this. We actually had hospitals that had 0 COVID in, and then almost as quickly as it went away, it came back. And it came back with a bit of a vengeance. This was right about the time that Las Vegas actually started to reopen, around the June timeframe. And then we had the 4th of July holiday, and we just really spiked right after that. But again, shortly after that, we saw this dramatic decline. And again, we never got to a 0 point, and you can see on my chart, I never quite got back to where we were from the first time we went down. But we weren't truly prepared for what happened after that. Starting in October, we started to see a climb. And while we previously had seen, some days would go up, some days would go down, it was going up, 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 up. December, we actually saw 85% more COVID admitted than we did in November. And you can see that the top of that tsunami occurred on January the 7th. At that time, I had 700 positive COVID patients across my 6 hospitals here in Las Vegas. And the problem we also had was that there had been such a delay in care. And up to this point, we had been canceling elective surgeries. And so now there's this kind of pent up demand for healthcare. And so not only are we seeing this huge rise in COVID, we're also seeing patients who previously postponed their elective surgeries now needing them. And when I say elective surgery, I'm not talking about things like plastic surgery and facelifts. I'm talking about a patient who needed a total joint. They're in a lot of pain, but it's considered elective because it can wait, it can be delayed. But when you're in that much pain, you can only take it so long and you want to have your surgery. So we're starting to do surgeries again. And we are just really at capacity. We now have a shortage of staff. We've got our ICUs are full and we are overloaded. But again, we hit January 7th. That was our peak. January 8th, 9th, 10th, it was just like this dramatic, like we went over a ledge and we just started to fall. I can tell you since January 7th, I've only had 2 days where we actually increased the number of COVID positive patients. Otherwise, it's been a decrease every single day. Yesterday, I only had 70 COVID positive patients in my hospitals from 700 back in January. So yeah, yeah, we can applaud that. And hopefully it stays. I can tell you the last 2 days though that increased were this past week. And you're probably hearing that there's going to be a 4th surge. I hope to God that doesn't happen because and I'm confident that it probably won't. They say much of it is due to the variants, the other variants that we're seeing. I can tell you in Clark County, they've only identified 26 cases of other variants. So we're not really seeing it. So I'm hoping those little increases I saw this past week were just little blips. The other thing I get asked a lot about is mortality. Of course, the ultimate sacrifice here is those patients who died. In 2020, I had 805 patients who did pass away from COVID-related disease during 2020. Again, these are just my hospitals. And you can see I broke this out by age because people always want to know, how old were they? Did they have other things wrong with them? And you can see from this that 69% of those that passed away were over the age of 65. But that wasn't everybody. We did have young people who unfortunately passed away. The other indicator I always like to look at is those comorbid conditions. And you can see from this slide that diabetes really was rather significant. 53% of our mortality occurred in patients who had diabetes. And many of our patients actually had more than one comorbid condition. If you add these up, you'll see that it's greater than 805 because many of them had more than one. 11% of our patients, though, did not have any comorbid conditions. Healthy people, nothing wrong with them, got COVID and unfortunately passed away. There's also more long-term effects as well for people who did survive. And fortunately, the majority of people who got COVID fortunately survive. You know, many of them don't even get symptoms. Some get some symptoms, some get really sick, but just don't need to be hospitalized. But we do see some lingering effect in many patients, particularly in the elderly. But you see it in some healthy patients as well, who continue to have lingering effects, you know, such as body aches and fatigue, headache. Continue to also see some patients who kind of lost their taste and smell, and it's been that way for months. It still hasn't come back for them. So many of these lingering effects, even for people who have survived the disease. Other impact on other medical care as well has been the significant decrease in emergency room care. And while I'll be the first to admit that a lot of people do use the ER inappropriately and come to the ER when they shouldn't, I can tell you to have this dramatic of an ER decline is rather concerning. It was rather remarkable that somehow COVID cured cancer, cured heart disease, cured respiratory therapy and stroke, because nobody had those things when COVID hit. And people were just afraid to come to the emergency rooms. There was actually a study done by the Funeral Home Association, and I wish I had the statistics, but what it showed was that there was this dramatic increase in people who died at home during COVID because people were more afraid of coming to the hospital, afraid to get COVID, than they were about the condition that they were actually dealing with at the time. As I mentioned, we canceled elective surgeries, so there were delays. We're still trying to catch up on people who were delayed or postponed and get their care. And some people, frankly, just never got it, decided that, you know, they'd rather just wait at this point. And then I think I mentioned that people were just scared and postponed. You know, fortunately, over time, we have seen people come back. Our surgeries are now back at the level they were pre-COVID. Emergency room is still down about 20%. And some of that might be okay because it's people who are getting care from their doctor or from an urgent care instead of coming into an emergency room. And so we probably won't see all of that volume come back into the future. There were other valuable outreaches that were also canceled as well. You know, we used to conduct regular health fairs and we couldn't do that. We couldn't conduct childbirth classes. We couldn't conduct support groups like for oncology and other diseases and other symposiums that we did. And I think the effect of this was really kind of on the mental health of patients, you know, patients who were scared because they couldn't talk to somebody, a mother having a baby and who hadn't been able to go through a childbirth class prior to having the baby. We don't think about some of those kinds of things and the impact that that can have on our mental health. So as a healthcare provider, it was important that we as healthcare providers communicated that critical information, making sure that misinformation was corrected. And making sure that we were a reliable source of information. There was a lot of rumors about what was going on, about, you know, that people weren't really dying and that the government was making it up and, you know, other things like that. So we were kind of the source of truth of what really was happening within the hospitals. And we had to reassure our own employees. We had to talk to them frequently, acknowledge them frequently, reassure them that we were keeping them safe as they had to continue to take care of our patients. And then communicating with the media as well, because frankly, much of that was the source of misinformation was coming, frankly, from the media. Besides the medical impact, there certainly was an impact on Las Vegas overall and the economic impact that we saw. We obviously saw a dramatic decrease in our visitor volume. Las Vegas was actually poised to have probably a record year prior to COVID hitting. And when COVID hit in March, you'll see the decrease that occurred. By April, we were down to only 3% of prior year visitor volume. I'm surprised it was even 3%, 3% brave souls who came to Las Vegas in the middle of a pandemic. But as you can see, as we started to open back up in June, visitors started to come back. Unfortunately, when that last tsunami hit and COVID really rose and things actually kind of started to shut back down again, visitor volume shut back down again as well. This goes only to January. I can tell you, I was on the Strip last week. Vegas is back, baby, because I could tell you it was crowded. It was really, really crowded. It was March Madness, spring break, all wrapped into one. And there was a lot of people on the Strip. The unfortunate part too was obviously with our economy relying on tourism, it impacted employment as well. And oftentimes we compare it to what happened in the 2008 Great Recession. During that time, you'll see we lost 196,000 jobs, but we lost that over 2.5 years. During the pandemic, we lost 280,000 jobs in just 2.5 months. Now, the good news is we've gained about 2/3 of that back, and unemployment in February did decrease to about 8.3%, but I can tell you we still are the highest unemployment in the entire nation. From a healthcare perspective, the impact that had on us was all of these people who were now unemployed were also now uninsured. And while many of our Strip properties stepped up and continued to pay premiums for their employees, not every employer was able to do that. And so we did see a dramatic increase in uninsured patients during this time as well. There were several positive attributes as well that I want to talk about. The first was that there was this acceleration of innovation, particularly around telehealth. I mean, typically to kind of roll out technology always takes some time. This literally happened overnight. We were able to launch telehealth programs in all of our physician practices. And I can tell you, even today, at one point we were doing 100% telehealth for physician practices. We're still today doing about 40%. So a lot of patients have preferred the methodology. It's easy. You don't have to drive anywhere. You just click on a button and there's your doctor and you could talk to them. Unfortunately, you can't do everything over telehealth. You still need to, lay hands on a patient to do a proper examination on them. And so it's never going to replace, but I can tell you the technology, frankly, was a literal lifesaver during this period of time. We also had unprecedented collaboration. The hospitals collaborating together. We would meet regularly. We would share PPE. We would share testing supplies, to make sure that everybody was covered, regardless of which hospital people went to. And then we saw a tremendous amount of collaboration within the facilities. One of our hospitals actually made the national news with David Moore, with a physician who was inside of a COVID positive patient, all donned up, actually scrubbing a floor so that the housekeeper wouldn't have to go into the room. And he did that regularly. He would empty the trash and he would scrub the floor and he would do the vital signs for the nurses so they wouldn't have to. And we saw a tremendous amount of collaboration like that. Resiliency in terms of repurposing our space, crafting PPE out of garbage bags and doing what we had to do. But the resiliency of our staff was probably the most important from a resiliency perspective. Most of them felt that this was a moral obligation to continue to care for patients. And so they came in every single day, worked overtime. They were dedicated to what they needed to do. Improved treatment protocols. As time went on, as I said, we initially had most of our patients in the ICU. Now we have very few patients ever make it to the ICU because we know how to treat better. We've got the medications. We know not to put people on ventilators unless they absolutely have to go on. Proning was probably one of the biggest areas that we found. Proning is when you move a patient onto their side and then onto their stomach, as the picture shows there, and laying on your stomach puts less pressure on the organs. And we found that patients were able to breathe a lot better by doing that. So just some of those treatments over time really, it decreased the mortality rate, it decreased the critical care rate of our patients. And then developments in nursing. As I mentioned, we were short on nurses and on many occasions, and we had to repurpose individuals. So a nurse is typically assigned to care for X number of patients. And so what we had them do is they had to care for more patients because we didn't have enough of them. So we teamed them up with nursing assistants and others so that they had more hands to take care of a larger number of people, but their skills could be used at the highest level. And they didn't have to do things that they would have traditionally done. That was pushed on to others who were at a lower level from a nursing perspective. And I think one of the great things that came out too is that the outreach from our community was outstanding, from people in the community lining up outside the hospitals to applaud people as they were leaving their shifts, to the Thunderbirds doing a flyover. We had food delivered from restaurants almost every day. It was just amazing to see the outpour from the community. And so we truly, truly appreciated that. So we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. We are starting to vaccinate, and how many, by show of hands, how many in the room are now at least one dose? Okay, 2 doses? Good, great to hear that. We're certainly strong advocates for vaccination, and the good news in Nevada is we have now administered 82% of the vaccine that we have received. The bad news is that we've administered 82% of the vaccine that we've received. So we need to get more vaccine. And next week we are launching, every adult is eligible for the vaccine. So we're hoping that the state continues to get our fair share of those vaccines so that more and more people can be vaccinated. I just want to show you a quick slide because, part of the argument that I hear is, well, it's really not very effective. So why am I even going to bother getting it? Oftentimes we'll compare it to the flu. You heard that all very on, this is just like the flu. It's not a big deal. If you look at the effectiveness of flu vaccine, and these are just 3 example years, but the most effective year was actually only at 60%. The least effective was 19%. So while we all and most of us should be getting the flu vaccine every year, and in the hospitals it's actually mandatory, you can see it's not really all that effective because they really don't know. And then we go into COVID and the new vaccines there. These first 3 are those vaccines that are currently being used in Europe, not in the United States yet, but you can see that the efficacy rate is pretty good on those. Hopefully that will allow us to travel to Europe into the future. But then you can see the ones that we are using in the United States, J&J, Moderna, and then the Pfizer vaccine, with certainly the Moderna and the Pfizer being more effective from a protecting from an immunity perspective than Johnson & Johnson. The advantage with Johnson & Johnson is it's only 1 shot versus 2. But I can tell you the efficacy in terms of hospitalization and death in all 3 of these is phenomenal. It's almost 100%. So I encourage you to get your vaccine next week. So just to conclude, we've got some very encouraging trends. We're seeing more and more Nevadans getting vaccinated. We are moving towards herd immunity as a result, that coupled with the people who've actually already had COVID. The restrictions are being lifted, and our schools are opening, as we heard earlier. And then last but not least, the Knights are making another Stanley Cup run. So, and I had to fit that in because I am a super fan. So.
Thank you for that great presentation, Carla. I'm sorry that we're running out of time. And so we won't be able to take any questions during the meeting, but if you'd be willing to stay, I'm sure there's some people that would like to ask you a question.
Absolutely.
And I'll warn you ahead of time, like every other group in town, we have our share of COVID skeptics here. So some of the questions will probably be interesting.
I will be happy to talk to them.
So we don't give away trinkets to gather dust on a shelf in your office. Instead, we're going to buy a meal in your name, a share what you can of work through the USO Community Service Program.
Thank you very much.
We do that for all our speakers. And in light of your speech today, though, we've been selling these masks to our members. So I'd like to give you 2 masks.
Well, thank you.
Give to 2 people who can't afford a mask. Oops.
Thank you.
Here.
Oh, you want to take a picture?
Yeah.
With that?
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you.
So Carla has agreed to stay if you'd like to ask her a question afterwards. And on that note, be safe and meeting adjourned.
Bye, Zoomers. Have a great weekend.
Goodbye,
Bye,
everybody. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Is there any way that, Stu, that our audio might still be there at the meeting so that we could ask her a question if she was not out of the room?
Well, I didn't turn it off, so unless they did, why don't you say, "Hey, Richard, yo, Richard,
Yeah.
could you come to the microphone?"
Oh, there
Richard.
you go. Richard, up at the screen.
Richard, come to the microphone. No.
I don't think unless they turned the audio off, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Boy, I'll tell you what I wanted to ask her. In 2009, Obama completely depleted the strategic national supply of PPE, and he refused to replenish it. And he did it for the H1N1 virus. And everybody, begged him to please replenish it, but he didn't. I'm just wondering whether the hospitals were aware that there was no national recourse and whether or not they tried to get it before COVID hit. I mean, in retrospect, the worst thing that probably Obama did was to deplete the supply of the strategic national reserve, because that would have been a buffer that would have probably kept COVID from spiking in the first time.
Richard, can you hear us? Since he's close to the thing, no, maybe not.
No.
No, yeah, there's a lot of good questions. That was one of the best presentations that I've seen in a long time at our meeting, and I would love to have a copy of her slides. She had some excellent factual information that needs to dismiss some of the myths out there. My question to her was going to be, what's the latest information on those of us who have had both of our shots, whether there's any evidence that we still can be a carrier or not? What's the latest information on that? I hear mixed stuff on that all the time.
Yeah, I think the CDC, at least through yesterday, was unwilling to commit, and they were saying you need to be careful. But I turned on the TV this morning with breakfast, and they said that the results of the study show that if you've had it, you cannot transmit it. So I think that's breaking news.
If you've had the vaccines or had the virus?
No. If you had the vaccines. In fact, the other thing, same thing this morning, they said they've also determined that even though you do get some immunity from having recovered from it, the immunity you get is nowhere near as robust as actually getting the vaccine. So they're saying if you have recovered from COVID, you still should get the vaccine, because it'll provide you with a much more robust immunity, and it also will protect you against some of the variants that you might not get protection from. So there were two. Oh, and the third thing they reported this morning was the study has come out showing that it's both safe and effective for children from 12 years on up. Up until now, it's been 16 on up, and so they're now recommending that children get it. Which it's funny what they said in the news report this morning. They said that will allow families to travel now, but I was kind of surprised. I thought what they would say is that'll make it safe for children to go into schools. They didn't mention anything about the schools. They said, now that you have young children who can allow to be vaccinated, their parents who probably have already been vaccinated will now be able to travel with them. I thought that was kind of strange, but anyhow, everything is recorded, Jim, on Facebook. So if you want to,
that's true.
You want to go to Facebook, you can pull her slides down from Facebook.
Oh, the actual slides, or just the presentation recorded from our Facebook?
Well, the presentation, but it includes the slides with her voiceover. So
yeah, that was great. You're right. I can just replay the whole meeting, right?
Yeah, in fact, I haven't paid any attention to it, but I think the default here on Zoom is that it records it to the cloud. So I should be able to log into the Rotary account after we hang up, and the recording should be there as well. But I think it's just as easy for you to get it on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll give it a try for sure. If you happen to do that and there's a link or something, if you'd send me the link, that'd be great. If not, no worries. I'll like I said, I should be able to do it though too. I think you're right. I just wish we could have had a chance to ask her some questions. That was one of the better speakers we've had in a while, I think.
Yeah, she was incredibly filled full of facts, and it was just well put together, well presented, and yeah, but that it went long, so.
Yeah, I know it's tough when you're. I remember when you're the president, you get real. You start sweating it at 1:28, so you want to get everybody out of there so nobody gives you grief.
People have to go back to work. Yeah. After we hang up, I'll see if I've never actually done it. I know it records it to the Zoom cloud, and I don't know if it just gives you an open link that I can pass along to you, or if maybe I have to download it and then send it to you. But let me see.
All right, bud. All right, you guys take care. Jason, good seeing you, buddy.
Good seeing you too. Hey, Stu, look into something called Otter AI. It's OTTER.ai. It's a plugin. I think that they have even a free version of it. What it does is when you record all your Zoom cloud meetings, it integrates with Zoom and it gives you a transcript of the whole Zoom call. It's phenomenal. We use it for our business. So good.
A text transcript?
Yeah, it gives you a full text transcript of the whole meeting, of everything that was said.
Oh,
and it even tries to break it down into different callers and stuff. It's okay, but yeah, it's phenomenal. Check it out.
Oh, I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, I will. So far I use a lot of different services, some of which will automatically create captions, which are not they're not incredibly accurate, but it's amazing they're able to actually follow different accents, different voices, genders, and still produce a readable transcript. So the technology, voice recognition, is really getting quite incredible.
Yeah, Otter AI.
Okay. Right after I hang up, I'm going to play with it.
For sure, you'll have fun with it.
It was kind of nice today too. We got to pass word along to Bob Werner. Thanks to him for trying to be the remote ESPN cameraman, because that helped seeing the crowd and stuff too. So
yeah.
All right, you guys have a good week.
Yeah, that was nice.
We'll see ya.
Bye bye.
You as well, guys. Bye bye.